There's a man you've never heard of. He never posted on social media, never gave a TED Talk, never wrote a book. He just sat quietly in a room, did almost nothing, and walked away with more money than most people will see in 10 lifetimes. And the wildest part, he wasn't the only one. There's a whole hidden group of men throughout history who used this exact same method. They called it different things, but the core idea was always the same: do less, earn more, and never explain yourself to anyone. Now, before we go any further, if this is the kind of story that makes you lean forward in your seat, do yourself a favor right now. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell, because this channel is built for people who want to understand the world in a way most people never will. The kind of ideas that don't show up in classrooms. The kind of wisdom that only comes from studying the quietest, most dangerous minds in history. So hit subscribe. I'll wait. Okay. Let's get into it. We live in a world that worships noise. Hustle culture tells you to grind until your fingers bleed. Social media rewards the loudest voice in the room. Motivational speakers scream at you to wake up at 4 in the morning, take cold showers, and work until you collapse. And look, some of that has value. Hard work matters. Discipline matters. But here's something nobody talks about. The richest, most powerful men in modern history didn't follow that playbook at all. They followed a completely different one. A playbook so simple, so counterintuitive, so quietly devastating in its effectiveness that most people walk right past it without ever seeing it. It's called Strategic Stillness, and it has made ordinary, unremarkable men extraordinarily wealthy, silently, without fanfare, without anyone watching. Let me take you back to the early 1900s. A young man named Jesse Livermore is sitting in a small brokerage office in Boston. He's 17 years old. He's not from money. He's not connected. He doesn't have a mentor or a trust fund or a Harvard degree. What he has is a notebook and a habit. Every single day he writes down numbers, stock prices. He studies patterns. He says almost nothing to anyone. His coworkers think he's strange. His boss thinks he's slow. But Jesse is watching something that nobody else in that room is watching. He's watching the rhythm of the market, the way prices breathe, the way they expand and contract like a living thing. And then one day, he just stops trading. He goes completely still. Weeks go by. People think he's given up. And then, at exactly the right moment, like a man who has been holding his breath underwater, he surfaces. He makes a single trade, one move, and walks away with the modern equivalent of millions of dollars. His coworkers can't understand it. They were working twice as hard and making a fraction of what he made. What did Jesse know that they didn't? That's exactly what we're going to get into, but first, I need to tell you about another man, because what he did makes Jesse's story look almost small. His name was Thomas Lawson, and in the early 20th century, he was one of the most feared men on Wall Street. Not because he yelled the loudest, not because he made the most moves, but because of something he called sitting on his hands. Lawson had a rule. He would spend months, sometimes years, researching a single opportunity. He would read everything, talk to everyone, study a company from every angle possible, and then he would wait. He would sit completely still while everyone else was scrambling, trading, reacting, chasing. His peers thought he was losing his edge. They whispered that he had gone soft, that something was wrong with him. And then, just like Livermore, he would move, once, clean, decisive. And the results were so extreme, so wildly disproportionate to the effort visible from the outside, that people genuinely believed he had some kind of secret information, some inside edge. But he didn't. The edge was the stillness itself. And that is the part that nobody understands. See, we've been trained to believe that output equals results, that the more moves you make, the more success you create. But these men understood something deeply different. They understood that in environments of chaos, the man who is still has an almost supernatural advantage. Because while everyone else is reacting, he is thinking. While everyone else is moving, he is watching. While everyone else burns energy on noise, He is conserving everything for the one moment that actually matters. Now here's where it gets really interesting. And I want you to stay with me because this next part is going to change the way you see a lot of things. There's a concept in behavioral economics called action bias. It was studied formally in the context of soccer goalkeepers facing penalty kicks. Researchers found that when a player takes a penalty, goalkeepers almost always dive to the left or the right, even when staying in the center would statistically give them a better chance of making the save. Why? Because standing still feels wrong. Because doing nothing in a high-pressure moment feels like failure, even when it's actually the optimal choice. And this bias doesn't just affect goalkeepers. It affects investors. It affects entrepreneurs. It affects every single person trying to build something in their life. We are hardwired to equate movement with progress, and that hardwiring costs most people everything. Think about the last time you felt anxious about a situation in your life. Maybe it was a financial problem, a relationship issue, a career decision. What did you do? Most people do something, anything. They send emails at midnight. They make impulsive decisions. They call people they shouldn't call and say things they shouldn't say, because action feels like control and stillness feels like surrender. But the men we're talking about today had trained themselves to feel the opposite. To them, action was the surrender. Stillness was the control. And let me tell you, that shift in perspective alone is worth more than any business strategy, any investment formula, any motivational speech you've ever heard. Now I need to tell you about a man most people have completely forgotten. His name was Bernard Baruch. And if Jesse Livermore was quietly dangerous, Bernard Baruch was something else entirely. He was the advisor to 6 United States presidents. He helped shape American economic policy through 2 world wars. He influenced decisions that affected hundreds of millions of people. And almost nobody outside of history books knows his name. Why? Because he never sought attention. He operated entirely in the background. His nickname, and this is real, his nickname was the Lone Wolf of Wall Street. Not because he was aggressive, but because he worked alone, thought alone, decided alone. He once said something that stopped me cold when I first read it. He said, "Nobody ever lost money by sitting on their hands." Let that land for a second. Nobody ever lost money by sitting on their hands. In an era where every financial advisor, every broker, every talking head on television is telling you to act, to move, to optimize, to hustle, this man who advised 6 presidents and built a fortune that would be worth billions today said the most powerful thing you can do with money is sometimes nothing at all. But I want to be really clear here because this is where a lot of people get it wrong. Strategic stillness is not laziness. It is not passive. It is not sitting on your couch eating chips and calling it a philosophy. What Livermore, Lawson, and Baruch all practiced was a very specific kind of active waiting. They were doing enormous amounts of work in their minds while appearing to do nothing on the outside. The preparation was intense. The observation was relentless. The discipline required to not act when every instinct screams at you to move is one of the hardest skills a human being can develop. And that is exactly why it is so rare and exactly why it is so powerful. Now here's the part of the story that I've been building toward, because there's a pattern that ties all of these men together. And once you see it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. Every single one of these men had developed what I call a threshold, a personal line in their mind that had to be crossed before they would act. Below that threshold, no matter what was happening, no matter how much pressure they felt, no matter what everyone around them was doing, they stayed still. Above that threshold, they moved with total, uncompromising commitment. Most people don't have a threshold. They have anxiety. They react to the pressure of the moment. They confuse urgency for opportunity, and they spend their whole lives making moves that cancel each other out. These men were different. Their threshold wasn't a feeling. It wasn't a gut instinct. It was built from weeks, months, years of preparation, of studying patterns, of understanding probability, of knowing themselves well enough to know when their mind was clear and when it was clouded. And this brings me to the moment in this story that I think is the most important, because there's one final man I want to tell you about, and his story connects all of these threads in a way that I think will genuinely stay with you. His name doesn't matter. That's actually kind of the point. He was an ordinary man, grew up working class in the Midwest sometime in the mid-20th century, worked a regular job for 20 years, lived in a modest house, drove a modest car. His neighbors thought he was boring. His coworkers thought he was unremarkable. And then he retired. And when his estate was settled after he died, the people who opened that paperwork went completely silent. Because this unremarkable, quiet, almost invisible man had accumulated a fortune worth several $1,000,000. Through decades of disciplined, patient, strategic doing, almost nothing. He had picked a handful of companies early, companies he believed in completely. He had bought shares, and then he had sat still. While markets crashed and everyone panicked and sold and scrambled and reacted, he sat still. While markets boomed and people got greedy and over-leveraged and made reckless bets, he sat still, just still, year after year, decade after decade. And the math of compound interest had done what math always does when you give it enough time and don't interfere with it. It had turned modest investments into a life-changing fortune. No trading, no reacting, no noise, just patience so deep it looked like indifference to everyone watching. Now here's the lesson that I don't want you to miss, because it goes way beyond investing, way beyond money. The principle these men lived by is applicable to almost every area of human life. In relationships, the man who can sit with discomfort instead of reacting emotionally is the man who keeps his relationships intact. In business, the entrepreneur who can wait for the right opportunity instead of chasing every shiny object is the one who builds something lasting. In health, the person who can be consistent and boring and patient instead of bouncing between fad diets and extreme programs is the one who actually transforms their body over time. The world rewards patience, not the fake kind, not the passive kind, the active, disciplined, almost violent kind of patience, where you have done the work, you have prepared completely, and now you are waiting with total clarity for the exact right moment to move. That kind of patience is not natural to human beings. It has to be built. And most people never build it because it requires something that modern life is specifically designed to destroy, and that thing is tolerance for stillness. We live in the most distracted era in human history. Every app on your phone is engineered by teams of the smartest people in the world, specifically to make you react, to make you click and scroll and respond and engage before you have had a single second to think. And the people building those systems are not doing it by accident. They understand action bias better than most people on Earth, and they use it. Every notification is a manufactured urgency. Every trending topic is a simulated pressure. Every algorithm is a machine designed to keep you moving so fast that you never stop long enough to think clearly. And in that environment, the person who can stop, who can sit still, who can think before they act, has an advantage that is almost incomprehensible to anyone still caught in the noise. Because clarity in a world of confusion is the ultimate edge. Jesse Livermore understood this. Bernard Baruch understood this. That invisible man in the Midwest understood this. That invisible man in the Midwest understood this. And now you understand it too, which means you have a choice to make. You can keep living the way most people live, reactive, impulsive, always moving, always busy, always tired, always wondering why the results don't match the effort. Or you can start building something different. You can start developing your threshold. You can start learning the difference between productive stillness and passive avoidance. You can start training the part of your mind that wants to react to sit down and wait. Not forever, not passively, but strategically, patiently, powerfully. Because here's what I want you to take away from everything we talked about today. The most expensive thing in the world is not a yacht or a mansion or a private jet. The most expensive thing in the world is a bad decision made in a moment of panic. And the cheapest, most accessible, most democratic advantage available to any human being on this planet is the ability to pause, to think, to wait, to be still when everything around you is screaming at you to move. That stillness is free. It costs you nothing except the discipline to practice it, and it can literally change the entire trajectory of your life. Now, I want to hear from you. Specifically, here's my question for you, and I want a real answer in the comments below. What is one area of your life right now where you know deep down that you are reacting when you should be waiting? Where are you making moves out of anxiety instead of out of clarity? Drop it in the comments. No judgment, just honesty. Because sometimes naming the thing is the first step to changing it, and I read every single comment. I want to know where you're at. If this story made you think differently about anything today, do me one favor. Send this video to somebody who needs to hear it. You know who that person is. The one who is always hustling but never arriving. The one who is always busy but always tired. The one who has all the talent in the world but can't seem to make it click. Send it to them, not because it'll fix everything overnight, but because sometimes one idea at the right moment is all it takes to shift the whole direction of a life. And if you are new here and you somehow made it to the end of this video without subscribing yet, now is the time. This channel is built around one simple idea. That wisdom is the most powerful currency in the world, and most of it is hiding in plain sight inside the lives of people history has almost forgotten. We dig it out every single week. So hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, and I will see you in the next one. Stay still out there. The right moment is coming, and when it does, you'll know exactly what to do.